Greg Sise from EnergyLink. So over to you, Greg.
Let's get on with it. Well, hi everyone. I'm doing my annual electricity talk. This time about the crisis that occurred this year. What happened? Was there anything new that we learned, and where do we go from here? So we had some very low inflows into our hydro lakes, and as a result, storage fell. So it got down to the point where it was setting new records for low New Zealand total storage. That's based on data back to 97. 1992 possibly got lower than that, but certainly since our electricity market was established, this is a new record. But then, as it always does, it rained, not just once, several times, lots of big snowfalls as well. So now the lakes are almost as full as they get at this time of year. How about that? So at the same time as the lakes were falling, the prices were going up. That's the red curve. That's the spot price at a place called Haywards, just north of Wellington. So it shot up to a record high, and that was at about $700 per megawatt hour for a week, or 70 cents a kilowatt hour. Most people don't pay spot prices, so it's sort of meaningless in some ways. But then it rained and it shot back down again, and it stayed down low ever since. The other thing that happened, which contributed to that price rise, was that we had an unexpected shortage of gas, and we need gas in order to fill the gaps when the lakes are low during dry periods. So the big consumers in the room, and I know there are some here, you work in a different market to households and small businesses, and this is an index of contract prices for large consumers, and it shot up as well. These are contracts typically 3 years long, sometimes a bit longer, and they shot up because of low lake levels and also because of concerns about gas supply. So this is a chart showing gas production, effectively by month, over quite a long period, and we can see that over the last couple of years it's been trending downwards. So it wasn't unexpected that the production of gas would be lower this year than historically. What was a surprise, though, was just how much lower it was than previous years. So, for example, the owners of the Kupe well spent about $200 million drilling a new well looking for more gas. They only do that if they think they're going to find it, and there was no gas there. There were some other fields that ran down unexpectedly as well. So that was a real surprise. That's effectively what was different this year. So this is a graph of the reserves of gas. MB put it out once a year, usually mid-July. And last July, we had a big drop, unexpectedly big drop. And lo and behold, again this July, right in the middle of this crisis, we had another big drop. And that surprised an awful lot of people. And as well as that, the production from a lot of these fields was running down unexpectedly. So this is quite new, and really it's challenging all of the assumptions that the electricity sector has about the availability of fuel for dry years, etc. One other thing that happened during the last few months was that Methanex, the big methanol producer in Taranaki, sold gas to Contact Energy and Genesis Energy for electricity generation. They actually shut their plant, and they're just getting it restarted now. One more thing that's quite radically new is the arrangement that Tiwai has, the Tiwai Point Aluminium smelter, with Meridian Energy in particular. So there were some new contracts signed just before the 31st of May. So now we know the smelter's around for the long term. But under the new agreements, Meridian can call demand reductions. Demand reduction is the same as extra generation if the lakes are getting low. And the contract had really only just been signed, and there was a call sent out for 25 megawatts of demand reduction. So Tiwai started turning off aluminium pots. You know, these are pots of molten aluminium and cryolite, etc. It's not a simple process. And then the next month, there was a call out to turn off a whole pot line. So this is over 200 of these aluminium pots, 185 megawatts in total. So that amount is unprecedented. And then on top of that, there was an additional 20 megawatts agreed outside of the new arrangement. So 205 megawatts of demand reduction at TY. Of course, it rained pretty much as soon as the whole thing was turned off, and Meridian said, oh, okay, you can turn it back on again now. So unfortunately, this is a process that takes a long time, and we're not expecting TY to be back at full production until probably late April or possibly even early May. Now, when you look at the amount of energy involved, the amount of energy not consumed by TY made available for other consumers and to keep the lakes up, it's equivalent to a generator of 100 megawatts running continuously day and night, 24/7, for several months. So this demand reduction is huge. And on top of that, TY gets a nice big sum. I don't know what it is, but it'd be tens of millions of dollars for having provided that facility to Meridian. So that's quite new. Okay, so what's working? I hear a lot of stuff in the media about this, and some guy said, I've never seen the Lake Tekapo so low. I'm shocked. The electricity market's not working. Well, I hear this sort of stuff all the time. The reality is that the lakes are managed pretty conservatively. That worked really well. And the industry was meeting daily to discuss what was happening and to coordinate responses that we required, etc. Spot prices went through the roof, and then they went through the floor. Get used to it. That's what happens when you start putting lots of renewables into electricity markets. So that's certainly working pretty well, and we can expect lots more of that as time goes on. What's not working? Well, as I mentioned, long-held assumptions about gas supply no longer hold, and everyone's wondering where do we go to next. There's a lot of work being done on this, more or less as we speak. It's certainly occupying a lot of our time as we try to forecast sort of up to 25, 30 years into the future. Now, information about the gas market has never been easy to access for those of us working in the electricity sector. But to be fair to the gas sector, even the gas producers were taken by surprise this time around. And the other thing that's happening is that as we add more wind, solar and geothermal to our system, we need our electricity, gas-fired electricity generation to be more flexible. So we need more storage, gas storage, because these gas wells don't like to be ramped up and down. They like to operate at fairly continuous draw-off levels. So there's a big challenge which the industry's looking at how to address. And along with that, Genesis Energy, who own the Huntley Power Station, are looking at replacing coal firing with wood pellet firing, or at least for the majority of the generation that they do at the Huntley Power Station and some of the older turbine units up there. So all of this is very new and very necessary. So that brings me to the last slide. Hopefully I haven't gone over time. The title is We're at a Fork in the Road. Okay, we have to take one of them, or maybe we can take more than one. Where might that take us? Well, maybe we just need to find more gas. Okay, well, the evidence says fine, but we need to drill a lot more wells if we're going to do that. And that costs a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Are the gas producers going to do that when the size of the gas market is shrinking? That's a very big question. And even if they do, the gas is going to get more expensive, and that will tend to hold electricity prices up. Methanex could close. It uses half the gas in New Zealand. It looks like they're going to close one of their two plants, and at the moment they're only running one of the production trains at the remaining plant. So we can't rule that out. It would be a shame to see them go, but it would free up a lot of gas for electricity generation and other uses. People are spending a lot of time looking at importing liquefied natural gas, LNG. It would probably come from Australia. Very handy in a dry year. Just phone up, probably go on the internet, probably have an app now, just order another 4 PJs in a ship. Send it over, you want it here by the 25th of August. The only downside of that, apart from the cost of setting it up, is that we would become exposed to international LNG prices, and they move around from sort of the low single digits up to $74, I think it was, at the height of the Ukraine energy crisis. So bit of a downside there. We could find lots more demand response like what we've witnessed at TY this year for dry years. That has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of people looking at that as well. It works best with large users, industrials. Not everyone wants to turn off for long periods, but potentially there are new industries that would come to New Zealand, build new renewable generation to power their plant, and part of the package would be demand response like TY. So quite a bit of potential there. I've talked about Genesis using wood pellets, so that's definitely got some legs. Maybe we could revisit Lake Onslow. That's been canned, that project, the pumped hydro system up in central Otago. Probably a good thing it has been canned because, well, we need some solutions pretty quickly, and it would take at least a decade to build if everything goes okay. And it costs a fortune, and we'd probably need to upgrade the inter-island cables, and it's in the wrong island, and it's a single point of failure. So I think the odds are stacked up against it. We could also overbuild, as they call it, wind, solar and geothermal, so that there's always enough energy available. And when the lakes are full, the lakes are spilling, the wind turbines are doing nothing, and the solar farms are producing nothing as well. So a lot of spill of renewable energy would work, but man, it would be expensive to build all of that extra plant. And there's a real question over whether electricity prices would support that level of build. Probably we'll see a mix of some of these, not all of them. And who knows, there's probably people working on solutions out there that I don't know about, either here in New Zealand, or in New Zealand. So yeah, we're sort of waiting to see what else develops. There we are, that was 2024 in retrospect, and we have to take some tough decisions in order to keep the lights on at an affordable price in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Greg. Insightful as always. Who's got questions for Greg?
Just a quick question, maybe not a quick answer. Is there much discussion around volatility of pricing from climate change impacts, both within the markets, legal requirements, or the ethical elements there in terms of using or trying to invest in some of these that clearly don't have a future in the next 30, 40, 50 years, but they may be considered a transition fuel?
So you're referring to fossil fuels?
Yeah, primarily the gas, but I guess any of those, even the renewables, the long international supply chain issues potentially with climate change volatility. So just wondering what the longer term pricing discussions are in any of these around climate change risks.
That seems to be like a huge area. I can really only talk about the stuff that I know a reasonable amount about. So in all of our modelling, we use historical inflows going back to about 1930. And we have access to synthetic solar and wind profile, production profiles as well, going back to 1980. So one of the things that we're working on is modifying the historical inflow data set to produce something that would potentially predict how inflows into the hydro lakes will change over the next sort of 2 to 3 decades. We're looking at the same thing for wind as well. Nothing with solar, but certainly with wind.
There's one other question at the front.
Thanks, Greg. One of the implications of what you're saying is increasing volatility in spot price, and presumably that has flow-on effects for the price for consumers. And I'm just in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are we, with the kind of future you're talking about, looking at increasing problems around energy poverty for households which are not going to be able to afford the prices as they increase?
Yeah, okay, that's a really interesting question. It's something I'm investigating at the moment. So it does depend on the type of volatility. So for example, this is one of the things that you would find with Lake Onslow that would create volatility at a monthly and annual level in prices, average prices. The sort of volatility I'm talking about is more sort of intraday, intra-week, some volatility and some additional volatility seasonally, sort of dry versus wet periods. But if you add something like Onslow, you actually amplify that up because Onslow's just a big battery. So it depends very much how you anchor prices, and things like the dreaded fossil fuels. If you've got access to enough fuel at a known price, that tends to anchor things well, reduces volatility. If we've got a lot of good demand response, even if we're having to pay consumers, and we will have to provide that demand response, that's the sort of thing that can help to anchor prices and minimise that volatility. So I think there are some futures, and this is one of the things I'm actually looking at the moment, say with Onslow, where you literally would get higher prices because of the volatility that a huge battery like that would introduce into the market. But there are other alternatives where you wouldn't see that to nearly the same extent.